You know who you won't be seeing is Lamar Jackson. He's out again with the ankle, or what we think is the ankle, right? We don't get a true sense of exactly what's going on. And we haven't thought we would see Lamar since we saw him kind of shuffling up the field. Remember we were watching the video last week of him, his first time in practice, like, that's not good. Which leads us to a greater question, okay? I think it's fair to sit there and go, Ravens aren't going to make the playoffs this year. It would take a lot for them. And if they don't make the playoffs, it's also fair to go, he didn't play the last quarter of the season, right? I know there's 17 games. It's 3.5, 4 games, whatever, with the ankle. And it's not his fault, okay? I'm not going to sit here and go, injuries are his fault. But I want you to think about this for a second. We're told that there's a couple of reasons the Niners are going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of this year. And what are those reasons? First thing is, he's never healthy, right? He's always missing time. He had the ACL a couple years ago. Now he's got a thumb issue, right? He's had, you name it, Jimmy Garoppolo. And again, these are not his fault injuries, like tearing your ACL because you want to, deliver a blow to a cornerback who's tackling you while going out of bounds. Not smart, just step out of bounds. But, look, that's a football play. Can you really fault him? He gets hit on the hand and hurts his thumb. Like, can you really fault him? Lamar Jackson hurts his ankle playing, in the NFL. Like, what are you going to do? Can you really fault him? These are not, it's not like he was drunk and he slipped and fell walking out of a bar where you're like, all right, that one's on you, not on the team. So the injuries for Garoppolo are football injuries, right? And Garoppolo, the only thing we know that he's done that was seen as a misstep off the field wasn't he seen on a date with a porn star, right? Like, again, I guess that's seen as by some people as what Cowherd called a lack of judgment. Yeah, I don't know if we're judging who people date or whatever. I don't know who Lamar dates, and I'm not concerned. His personal life is his personal life. But I'm trying to draw a parallel here. Okay? So the thing with Garoppolo is Garoppolo's hurt a little bit too often. Garoppolo has this ability to turn the football over at inopportune times. Like, he can play great, and then, God, he throws a pick a game. You're like, what was he doing? And there seems to be a ceiling. Maybe it's the Super Bowl, right? Maybe it would have been the NFC Championship game, but he didn't actually have to throw the football. But it seems to be that the Niners are like, he can only get us to a point, and we can't break through that point. Let's take Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar has been better than I think most anyone would have thought coming out, right? Like, that's reasonable. He was a first-round pick, so let's not act like he was, sitting in the green room on day 3, and then the Ravens threw him a bone when everybody thought he was going to play wide receiver, and suddenly he became the MVP of the league. Like, let's not oversell it. Lamar Jackson won the Heisman Trophy, was a first-round pick, but among the believers in him, the Ravens selected Hayden Hurst before him in the first round. Okay, so Lamar Jackson last year had a come-from-behind win in the playoffs, which was something that he had not yet done. But there does appear to be a ceiling for how far he can take you. This year, just as an example, we heard last year, hey, you got to get him more weapons. Right? Remember that? Got to get him more weapons. I can, if you'd like, we can go back and I can pull the tape of several different analysts going, I'd really like to see Lamar with another kind of top level wide receiver. And my point has always been and will continue to be, that sounds great, but good luck getting a number 1 wide receiver to sign there just because the volume of targets you're going to get are lower. Okay? They're a lower volume of targets because he doesn't throw the football as much. So, but what they do this past offseason, okay? Well, they went out and got a talented wide receiver who's often hurt in a Sammy Watkins, right? They also drafted in the first round a wide receiver in Rashad Bateman. And, of course, they have another first-round pick wide receiver in a Marquise Hollywood Brown. So in terms of weaponry, Mark Andrews is a tremendous pass-catching tight end. They have a big-time tight end. They have 3 different wide receivers, right? Bateman's a freak talent. Marquise Brown has got take the top off the defense speed. And Sammy Watkins, though he's not what he was billed to be coming out as a top 10 pick, that dude is a big target with good hands and a guy who, if he's your 3rd best wide receiver or 4th best pass catching option, you're pretty good. We'd all agree there that they've done him right in terms of putting weapons around him. Now, they've had issues, obviously, with injuries and running backs, and now they're at Devontae Murray and Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray are the 2 running backs. But finding running backs has never been an issue, especially considering the best running back of them all is Lamar Jackson, who's also the quarterback. But my point is this, okay? Look, I think Baker's done in Cleveland. I think he's done irreparable damage and leaking out stories and questioning media people and losing the locker room and blaming the coaching staff and all this stuff. Okay, I thought coming into the season that the biggest question in future contracts was going to be Baker Mayfield, because I thought the Browns wanted Mayfield, but they don't want to spend $30-40 million on Baker Mayfield because he's not worth that. And so will he be the first kind of middle-class quarterback? I think that ship has sailed. But what about Lamar Jackson? Okay, now take a breath here before you're like, well, you thought Sam Darnold was better than him. I did. Thought Sam Darnold had a better upside because what Sam Darnold does best, okay, he's elusive and he runs around back there and makes throws, but it was throws from the pocket. Okay? Whereas Lamar Jackson, what you want him to do most is sit back there in the pocket. You want to actually keep him in the pocket. Once he's on the move, it's really, really hard. Okay? And you want to make Lamar make those precise throws underneath where sometimes he just misses. Okay, he has better supporting talent on offense than he's ever had, less the running backs. I'll grant you that. The division, Pittsburgh's not as good as they've been. Cleveland's not particularly good. And though Cincinnati is good and they smashed them twice, okay, in terms of normally the AFC North, it's a much better division than it is this year. This is his worst year throwing the football. He's thrown the most interceptions, yet he has better weapons around him than he's ever had. Last 2 years, he's been hurt. He's had COVID twice, but he's also been hurt twice. And there seems to be some sort of ceiling, at least to this point, in the playoffs. There's some Garoppolo to it, okay? Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl. This cat did not. And Garoppolo had a great defense when he went to the Super Bowl. The Ravens have had a very good defense. Maybe not as much this year, but in years past. Is anybody else interested in how deep the Ravens are willing to dig? And remember that as much as he's been championed for not having an agent, his mom's his agent, that's not always a good thing. You know, an agent, a lot of times, we've talked with Daniel Jeremiah about this. The first thing they say when they get on the phone with you or they talk to you after a negotiation, they're like, look, they love you, okay? You need that filter of an agent when they tell your agent something you might not want to hear. When it's your mom, and really your mom is just relaying to you or you're part of every conversation, there's not that filter. So they can't either be honest or you hear that honesty, it doesn't feel great. I wonder what the Ravens' future with Lamar looks like, because John Harbaugh, by his words, seems to be completely in. Their front office, by their words, seems to be completely in. But wouldn't this be doubling down on a guy who, though a complete freak talent, and a guy who, by all accounts, is the leader of that franchise? Isn't he hurt? Okay. Plus, running quarterbacks get hurt more often, and eventually they lose that step, and now they get hit more often. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you've used all your resources to put a great offense around him, and you haven't gotten better output. Isn't there that same ceiling that sits there as there is for Jimmy G? I don't know. I'm fascinated by how this thing plays out. Tyler Huntley's going to get another shot. What the Ravens do in the offseason with Lamar's contract, that's as interesting to me as what the Packers do with Aaron Rodgers, definitely more interesting than what the Browns do with Baker Mayfield.